I'm Audrey Patterson, 32, and I was excited to finally reconnect with my family after years of strained relations. As I pulled up to my childhood home on New Year's Eve, the lights and decorations filled me with hope. But when my brother Michael opened the door, his cold eyes fixed on mine. "This year's only for real family," he said, slamming the door in my face despite the gifts in my arms. Through the window, I caught his smirk as he rejoined our parents. That's when I realized my adoption wasn't just a fact, it was now a weapon. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what happened after that door slammed in my face, because what Michael didn't know was that he had just awakened something in me that would change our family forever. It all started a month before that devastating moment at the door. I was sitting in my Chicago office, staring at my phone in disbelief. After 3 years of minimal contact, my mother had called to invite me home for New Year's Eve. "We miss you, honey," she'd said. "It's time to put the past behind us." I had been adopted when I was 3 years old. The Pattersons gave me a good life in many ways. A comfortable home in small-town Indiana, decent schools, family vacations. But there was always something slightly off about my place in the family, especially when it came to my brother Michael. Michael was their biological son, 5 years older than me, and he never let me forget that I wasn't really one of them. It wasn't always obvious. Sometimes it was just the way he'd correct my family stories at dinner. "Well, that happened before you came along," he'd say, emphasizing the word came as if I were a package that had been delivered rather than a member of the family. My parents never seemed to notice these microaggressions. To them, Michael was their golden boy high school football star turned successful real estate developer who stayed in our hometown while I moved away to build my career in marketing. When I received that surprise invitation, I had just landed a major promotion to marketing director at my firm. Maybe it was that newfound confidence, or maybe it was simple homesickness, but something made me say yes. I wanted to share my success with my family. I wanted them to be proud of me. I spent weeks picking out perfect gifts for everyone. For Dad, a rare first edition of his favorite author's work. For Mom, a cashmere sweater in her favorite shade of blue and a spa package at the place she'd always wanted to try. Even for Michael, I'd chosen an expensive watch I knew he'd been eyeing online. The 6-hour drive from Chicago to Maple Creek, Indiana, gave me plenty of time to rehearse what I'd say, how I'd handle potential awkward moments. Snow flurries danced across the highway as memories flooded back, some good, some painful. I remembered the time Michael accidentally destroyed my science project the night before the fair. How he told my first boyfriend I was damaged goods because I was adopted. The way he'd convinced my parents that my decision to move to Chicago was a rejection of them, not just a career opportunity. But I was determined to start fresh. I was an adult now, successful in my own right. Surely we could move past the childhood rivalries. When I finally pulled into the familiar driveway, I noticed several cars already parked there, including Michael's shiny new Range Rover with personalized plates, Patterson one. Of course, he was already there, probably had been for days. I gathered my gifts and suitcase, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The porch light cast a warm glow on the fresh snow, and through the window, I could see the Christmas tree still up, glittering with the ornaments I remembered from childhood. When the door opened, there stood Michael, cocktail in hand, designer sweater perfectly pressed. His expression shifted from neutral to cold in an instant. "What are you doing here?" he asked, blocking the entrance. "Mom invited me," I said, confusion washing over me. "For New Year's." That's when he delivered those cutting words. "This year's only for real family." The door closed with finality, leaving me standing there with armfuls of carefully wrapped presents and a suitcase filled with hopeful outfits. Through the frosted glass, I could see him return to the living room where my parents sat laughing, completely unaware of what had just happened. The weight of rejection crashed over me like an icy wave. My cheeks burned despite the winter chill, and tears threatened to spill. I stumbled back to my car, fumbling with the keys, desperate to escape before anyone could see my humiliation. As I sat in the dark vehicle, watching the happy scene through the window, a horrible truth settled in my stomach. Michael had been working to erase me from the family all along, and he might have finally succeeded. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, tears streaming down my face as I tried repeatedly to call my parents. Neither answered. Text messages went unread. Through the window, I could see the party continuing as if I didn't exist. My fingers hovered over the ignition. It would be so easy to just drive away, to return to my life in Chicago and pretend this family wasn't worth the heartache. But something stopped me. This pattern had gone on too long. Michael had been systematically undermining my place in the family for years, and it had only gotten worse when I moved away. What started as childhood jealousy had morphed into something more sinister, more calculated. When I was 16, he accidentally spilled punch all over my prom dress an hour before my date arrived. In college, he convinced our parents that my study abroad program was a waste of money, nearly costing me that opportunity. At family gatherings, he'd subtly rewrite family history to exclude me from cherished memories. "Remember that camping trip where Dad caught that huge fish?" he'd say. "Oh wait, Audrey wasn't with us then. She was at that foster kids summer camp thing." My phone lit up with New Year's Eve texts from Chicago friends. Photos of parties and celebrations I should have been attending instead of sitting frozen in this car. "Happy New Year," they said. "Miss you." They had no idea I was stranded outside my family home, unwelcome at my own table. I couldn't leave yet. I needed to understand why my parents had allowed this to happen. Had they known what Michael planned to do? Were they part of it? I needed answers before I could walk away for good. The Pinewood Inn on the edge of town was the only place with vacancy on New Year's Eve. The desk clerk gave me a sympathetic look when I checked in with red-rimmed eyes and no luggage beyond my hastily retrieved overnight bag. That night was one of the lowest points of my life. Alone in a musty motel room, listening to distant fireworks as the new year began, I cycled through grief, rage, and a profound sense of abandonment. I barely slept, my mind replaying every interaction, searching for clues I might have missed. When morning came, my phone chimed with a text from my mother. "Honey, why didn't you come last night? We were expecting you." My hands trembled as I read it. So that was Michael's game. He hadn't just turned me away. He'd made it look like I was the one who had failed to show up. He was gaslighting not just me, but our parents, too. I showered, put on my most confident outfit, and drove back to the house. I needed to confront this head-on. When I arrived, only my mother's car sat in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, cleaning up party remnants. "Audrey!" She seemed genuinely surprised and pleased to see me. "Why didn't you come last night? Your father and I were so disappointed." "I did come, Mom," I said carefully, watching her expression. Michael answered the door and told me I wasn't welcome, that the party was only for real family. Her face fell, confusion flickering across it. "That can't be right. Michael said you texted that you couldn't make it, that something came up at work." "He lied, Mom. I was here. I had gifts for everyone." I pulled out my phone, showing her my call log. "I tried calling you both multiple times." She sat heavily at the kitchen table. "Michael said, you've been lying about a lot of things lately. He showed us those social media posts." "What social media posts?" She pulled out her iPad, navigating to what appeared to be my Instagram account, except it wasn't mine. Someone had created a fake profile using my photos, filled with posts about wild parties, complaints about my boring family in Indiana, and hints about fabricated aspects of my life in Chicago. "Mom, this isn't me. I barely use social media. This is fake." "He showed us emails too, Audrey. Things you supposedly wrote about us." The betrayal cut deep. Not just Michael's elaborate scheme, but my mother's willingness to believe the worst about me, without even asking for my side. "Mom, why would you believe that without even talking to me?" Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "You've been so distant since moving away. And Michael has been here with us, helping with everything. especially since your father's health scare last year." "What health scare? Nobody told me about any health scare." She looked genuinely surprised. "We asked Michael to call you." The pieces were falling into place. Michael hadn't just been poisoning them against me, he'd been actively cutting off communication, intercepting messages, creating a parallel reality where I was the villain and he was the devoted son. Then came the bombshell. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," my mother said, twisting her wedding ring nervously, "but we updated our will last month. Michael thought it was best, considering everything." My stomach dropped. "You cut me out of your will?" "Not completely," she said defensively. "There's still a small trust. But Michael convinced us that you'd just waste your portion on that lifestyle he showed us online." I stood up, unable to breathe. "So you believed fake social media posts over your own daughter? The daughter you raised for 29 years? Her expression hardened unexpectedly. "Adopted daughter," she corrected, then immediately looked horrified at her own words. The silence between us stretched, painful and revealing. "I think," she finally said, not meeting my eyes, "that maybe Michael's right about you. Maybe we never really knew you at all." I walked out without another word, the ultimate betrayal ringing in my ears. For the first time, I understood that this wasn't just about Michael's jealousy. My own mother had drawn a line between her children, and I was on the wrong side of it. I drove aimlessly through town, past the high school where I'd graduated with honors, past the park where I'd learned to ride a bike, past the church where I'd been in countless Christmas pageants. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. My entire understanding of my family had been shattered in less than 24 hours. Without consciously deciding to, I found myself pulling into Millie's Diner, a local institution where I'd spent countless hours studying during high school. The bell over the door jingled as I entered, and the smell of coffee and pancakes momentarily soothed my frayed nerves. "Audrey? Audrey Patterson? Is that you?" I turned to see Caitlin Miller waving from a booth by the window. We'd been close in high school but had fallen out of touch beyond occasional social media comments. She was beaming at me, her blonde hair now cut into a sleek bob, looking polished in a way that suggested professional success. "Caitlin, hi," I managed, attempting a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "Are you okay?" Her smile faded, concern replacing it. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Maybe it was the familiar face in the midst of so much betrayal. Or maybe I'd just reached my breaking point, but tears welled up before I could stop them. Caitlin immediately slid over and patted the seat beside her. "Sit, talk. Whatever it is, it can't be that bad." I slid into the booth, and the whole story came pouring out: the invitation, Michael's rejection at the door, the fake social media accounts, the changed will, my mother's final betrayal. By the time I finished, Caitlin was holding my hand so tightly her knuckles were white. "That's not just cruel, Audrey. Some of that sounds potentially illegal." "Illegal?" I hadn't even considered that angle. "I'm a lawyer now," she explained. "Family law, actually. And what you're describing, false impersonation online, potential financial manipulation of your parents, those are serious issues." The bell over the door jingled again, and a tall man in a police uniform entered. Caitlin waved him over. "This is my brother Ryan," she said. "He's a detective with Maple Creek PD now." Ryan Miller had been 2 years ahead of us in school. I vaguely remembered him as a quiet, serious kid who played baseball. Now he stood tall and confident, his expression softening with recognition. "Audrey Patterson, long time no see." Caitlin quickly filled him in on my situation. With each detail, Ryan's professional demeanor intensified. "I've heard things about your brother's business practices," he said carefully. "Nothing official enough for an investigation, but enough to raise eyebrows." "What kind of things?" I asked. "Complaints from elderly clients about high-pressure sales tactics, property flips with questionable permits, and rumor has it his company isn't doing nearly as well as he pretends." A chill ran through me. My mom mentioned my parents updated their will to favor Michael. She also said something about my dad having health problems last year. Caitlin and Ryan exchanged a look. "Audrey," Caitlin said gently, Has Michael gained control over your parents' finances in any way? Power of attorney? Joint accounts? The question hit me like a bucket of ice water. I didn't know. I had been so focused on the emotional betrayal that I hadn't considered the practical implications. I have no idea, I admitted. But my mother mentioned that Michael has been helping with everything since my dad's health issues. Ryan's expression turned grave. That could mean anything from picking up prescriptions to having access to their bank accounts. You should stay with me while you figure this out, Caitlin offered. My apartment has a pull-out couch. For the first time since arriving in town, I felt a flicker of hope. These people who weren't even family were offering more support than my own parents had. Later that evening, in Caitlin's cozy apartment, we began to piece together what might be happening. Ryan brought pizza and information he'd happened to overhear about Michael's business dealings. Caitlin pulled up legal resources on her laptop. His real estate company took a major hit during the market downturn last year, Ryan explained. There were rumors he was leveraged to the hilt. And suddenly he's driving a new Range Rover and your parents are changing their will, Caitlin added. That timing isn't suspicious at all. I thought about my parents' modest retirement savings, nothing extravagant, but comfortable. My father had worked for the Postal Service for 40 years, and my mother had been an elementary school secretary. They'd saved diligently, lived below their means. Do you think he's stealing from them? I asked, the words catching in my throat. I think we need to find out exactly what's happening before making accusations, Caitlin said cautiously. But yes, financial elder abuse is unfortunately common, even from family members, especially from family members. We stayed up late into the night, researching, planning, and strategizing. By morning, a course of action had emerged. We needed to gather evidence of what Michael was doing, both to my reputation and potentially to my parents' finances. As dawn broke over Caitlin's small balcony, I realized something had shifted inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, but they'd been joined by determination and clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let Michael win. The following morning, Caitlin and I sat in her law office, surrounded by legal pads and coffee cups. The clean, professional space contrasted sharply with my emotional turmoil, but the structured environment helped me focus. If Michael created false social media accounts in your name, that's identity theft, Caitlin explained, highlighting sections of the legal code she'd printed out. And if he's manipulated your parents into changing their will under false pretenses, that's undue influence. But can we prove any of it? I asked. That's where the investigation comes in. We need documentation of everything. The door opened and Ryan walked in, balancing 3 coffee cups and a paper bag. Brought reinforcements, he said, distributing coffees and pulling out chocolate donuts. You both looked like you could use the sugar. Any news from your end? Caitlin asked her brother. Ryan glanced at me before answering. Michael Patterson's name comes up in some interesting contexts around town. Nothing criminal on record, but there are complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau against his company. 3 in the last year alone. What kind of complaints? I asked. Misrepresentation of investment opportunities. Pressure tactics on elderly clients. One woman claimed he convinced her late husband to invest their entire retirement fund in a development that never materialized. I felt sick. And my parents trust him completely. There's more, Ryan said quietly. I asked around about your parents specifically. Your dad's health scare last year wasn't minor, Audrey. He had a heart attack. The room seemed to tilt. A heart attack? And nobody told me? According to my source, Michael told everyone he'd informed you, but that you were too busy with your career to come home. I fought back tears, thinking of my father alone in a hospital bed, believing I'd abandoned him. The cruelty of it was almost unimaginable. I need to check my parents' financial situation, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, but I don't have access to their accounts. I can help with the legal side, Caitlin offered. But first, we need more information about what exactly Michael's been doing. I called my assistant Sophie in Chicago, explaining enough of the situation to enlist her help in gathering financial and digital evidence. As a marketing director, I had resources our company's IT security team, for instance, that might help trace the fake social media accounts. While waiting for Sophie's research, we decided to speak with people who knew my family, starting with Mrs. Henderson, our longtime neighbor who had lived next door to my parents for over 30 years. Mrs. Henderson welcomed us into her immaculate living room, serving tea in delicate cups that had probably been wedding gifts in the 1,960 seconds. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Audrey Patterson, I didn't know you were in town. Your mother didn't mention you were coming home. That's part of why I'm here, Mrs. Henderson. There seems to be some confusion about my relationship with my family. The elderly woman's expression grew troubled. Well, I have wondered. Michael gives us all updates about you at the neighborhood gatherings, and they never sounded like the Audrey I watched grow up. What kind of updates? She hesitated. He said you'd had some problems. That you were seeking treatment for certain issues. Issues? I echoed. Mental health concerns, she clarified uncomfortably. He made it sound quite serious. Caitlin squeezed my hand under the table as I absorbed this new betrayal. Mrs. Henderson, have you noticed anything unusual about my parents recently? Any changes in their social habits? The older woman seemed relieved by the change of subject. Now that you mention it, they've become quite reclusive this past year. They used to host bridge club every other Thursday. Your mother was in 2 book clubs, but they've dropped all that. When we invite them over, Michael usually answers saying they're not feeling up to it. So Michael is controlling their social calendar? I suppose he is, and he's made himself quite indispensable to them, always talking about handling their affairs and investments. As we were leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Can we meet? Alone. Dad. My heart raced. I showed the message to Caitlin and Ryan. Could be a trap, Ryan warned. Or it could be your father reaching out without Michael's knowledge, Caitlin countered. I have to go, I decided, but I'll be careful. We arranged to meet at Jefferson Park, a public place where Ryan could keep an eye on us from a distance. When I arrived, my father was already there, sitting on a bench near the duck pond, looking older and frailer than I remembered. Audrey, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You came. Of course I came, Dad. I've been trying to reach you and Mom. He looked down at his hands. Michael said you changed your number. That you didn't want us calling you anymore. Another lie. I swallowed my anger. Dad, what's going on? Mom said you had a heart attack last year. Why didn't anyone tell me? Michael said he told you. Said you were too busy to come home. His eyes searched mine. That didn't sound like you, but then there were those emails. What emails, Dad? Angry messages. Saying we weren't your real parents anyway, that we'd held you back. His voice broke. They came from your email address. Dad, I never sent those. Michael created fake accounts, fake messages. He's been lying to all of us. My father's face crumpled in confusion. But why would he do that? I took a deep breath. Dad, I need to ask you something important. Has Michael been managing your finances? His expression shifted to discomfort. He's been helping us invest. My pension, our savings. He says his real estate ventures are paying 20% returns. 20% returns in this economy. It was either a lie or a Ponzi scheme. Dad, I'm worried he might be taking advantage. Now wait, just a minute, he interrupted, his expression hardening. Michael has been here for us. Where have you been? I've been exactly where I've always been, Dad. Michael has been intercepting our communications, making you think I abandoned you. He shook his head stubbornly. He explained about your problems. The drinking, the instability. I stared at him in disbelief. Dad, I don't have a drinking problem. I'm the marketing director for a major firm in Chicago. I have the same cell phone number I've had since college. None of what he's told you is true. His face flushed. Then why did you abandon us? I didn't. I call every Sunday. I send cards for every holiday. My voice was rising despite my best efforts. Well, we need help now, he said, abruptly changing tactics. Financial help. Medical bills have been tough. Michael said you make good money in Chicago. If you really care about us. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a reconciliation attempt. It was a financial shakedown orchestrated by Michael. Did Michael suggest you ask me for money, Dad? His silence was answer enough. I love you, I said, standing up. But I'm not giving you money until we figure out what Michael has done with the money you already had. His face hardened. So Michael was right. You don't really care about us. He walked away, leaving me standing alone by the pond, heartbroken all over again. When I returned to Caitlin's apartment that evening, I found the door slightly ajar. Inside, papers were strewn everywhere, drawers upended, my laptop missing. Someone had broken in and taken all our research. As I stood frozen in the chaos, my phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. Go back to Chicago before things get worse. Final warning. Ryan arrived at Caitlin's apartment within minutes of my panicked call, followed by 2 uniformed officers. They took photographs, collected evidence, and filed an official report, but Ryan's expression told me what I already knew: there would be no fingerprints, no convenient clues leading directly to Michael. He's too smart for that, I said as the other officers left. He'd hire someone or create some kind of alibi. Probably, Ryan agreed. But this escalation means you're onto something that threatens him. Caitlin returned from her emergency court appearance, her face pale when she saw the destruction. All my case notes. I backed up the most important documents to my secure cloud drive, I assured her, grateful for my habitual caution with data. We were discussing next steps when my phone rang my boss in Chicago. Audrey, what the hell is going on? Janet's voice was tight with controlled anger. I've got clients calling me saying they received inappropriate emails from you, and HR just forwarded me a sexual harassment complaint. My blood ran cold. What? Janet? I haven't sent any inappropriate emails. I've barely checked work emails since I've been on vacation. Well, someone using your account sent suggestive messages to the Jensen account team and called Mr. Abernathy, and I quote, a dinosaur who should be extinct. I closed my eyes, fighting waves of nausea. My account must have been hacked. Janet, I'm dealing with a serious personal situation. Someone is actively trying to destroy my reputation. There was a long pause. You have 24 hours to get back to Chicago and sort this out, or I'll have to suspend you pending investigation. The call ended, leaving me staring at the phone in horror. He's going after your career now, Caitlin said quietly. I built that career from nothing, I whispered. 8 years of 60-hour weeks, missed holidays, proving myself over and over. Ryan put a hand on my shoulder. We'll figure this out. First, we need to secure your digital life. Caitlin called her friend Jason, a cybersecurity specialist who worked remotely for a tech firm. He arrived an hour later, a lanky man with kind eyes behind thick glasses who immediately took control of the technical situation. Your email was definitely compromised, he confirmed after running diagnostics on my phone. And it wasn't amateur hour. Whoever did this used sophisticated methods to bypass two-factor authentication. Can you trace it? Ryan asked. Jason's fingers flew over his keyboard. IP address traces back to... Well, this is interesting. The login came from your parents' home network. Michael, I said, not even a question anymore. I've secured your accounts with new protocols, Jason assured me, and I'm running traces on those fake social media profiles. If we can prove they originated from the same IP address. My phone buzzed again, a text from Sophie in Chicago. Emergency. Someone accessed client database from your account. CMO asking for immediate conference call. This was no longer just about family drama or even inheritance. Michael was systematically destroying everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built. I excused myself to take the conference call in Caitlin's bedroom, spending a grueling hour defending myself against accusations and explaining the situation without sounding paranoid. By the end, I'd bought myself 72 hours to resolve the security breach before more serious action would be taken. When I emerged, exhausted and emotionally drained, I found Ryan, Caitlin, and Jason huddled around a laptop. We've got him, Jason announced triumphantly. The fake Instagram and Facebook accounts were definitely created from your parents' IP address. And I found evidence of access to your work email from the same location. Is that enough for police action? I asked Ryan hopefully. His expression was regretful. It's evidence, but not conclusive proof it was Michael specifically. It could have been anyone in that house. My parents can barely operate their DVR, I pointed out. I know, but courts require more than circumstantial evidence. We need something that ties Michael directly to these actions. I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. He's going to get away with it, isn't he? He's going to destroy my career, steal my parents' money, and erase me from the family, and there's nothing I can do. The room fell silent for a long moment. No, Caitlin finally said firmly. That's not happening. We just need to change strategies. How? I asked, hating the defeat in my voice. If conventional methods won't work fast enough, we fight fire with fire. Her eyes gleamed with determination. Michael thinks he's the only one who can play psychological games? Let's show him he's wrong. Over the next few hours, we developed a plan. Sophie would handle damage control with my clients, while Jason continued gathering digital evidence. Ryan would discreetly investigate Michael's business dealings. Caitlin would prepare legal documents for every contingency, and I would appear to retreat. Make him think he's won, Caitlin advised. Post on your real social media that you're heading back to Chicago. Let him believe his intimidation worked. Meanwhile, you'll actually be staying at the Holiday Inn 2 towns over, Ryan added, where we can set up surveillance and build our case without him knowing. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. I had allies, people who believed me, who were willing to fight alongside me. That spark nearly extinguished when my phone rang again with an unknown number. Expecting another threat, I almost didn't answer. When I did, Michael's voice slithered through the speaker. I warned you, sister dear. His voice was cold, controlled. Things at work not going so well? That's just the beginning. How did you get this number? I demanded. I changed it this morning. He laughed. I have resources you can't imagine. Did you really think you could stop me? I've been planning this for years, every detail, every contingency. Why, Michael? What did I ever do to you? You existed, he spat, his composure cracking slightly. You took their attention, their resources, their love. Love that should have been mine alone. We were children, and there was more than enough love for both of us. Not to me, his voice hardened again. Go back to your pathetic life in Chicago, Audrey. Forget about Mom and Dad. Forget you were ever a Patterson. Or I promise, you will regret it. Is that a threat? It's a guarantee. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Something in me snapped. All the fear, all the hurt, crystallized into cold determination. Neither do you, Michael. You've never seen me fight before. You have no idea what I'm capable of either. I ended the call before he could respond. When I looked up, my 3 allies were watching me with newfound respect. Now that, Caitlin said with a grim smile, is the Audrey Patterson I remember from high school. The one who never backed down. I straightened my shoulders, a new resolve flooding through me. He's right about one thing. This is just the beginning. The next morning, our strategy session took place around a dining table in my anonymous hotel room, 20 miles from Maple Creek. The space was transformed into a command center, with laptops, legal pads, and a whiteboard Ryan had borrowed from the police station's training room. Let's establish what we know for certain, Caitlin began, marker poised over the whiteboard. 1. Michael has been intercepting communications between Audrey and her parents. 2. He's created false social media and email accounts in Audrey's name. 3. He's gained significant influence over their financial decisions. And 4, I added grimly, he's willing to escalate to physical intimidation with the break-in. Ryan nodded. We need to approach this systematically. Multiple fronts, coordinated effort. Sophie joined us via video call from my Chicago office, her familiar face a comfort on the screen. I've secured all your work accounts with IT's help, she reported. And I've started damage control with clients, explaining there was a security breach without going into personal details. Jason, hunched over his laptop, looked up. I've been tracking the digital footprint of the attacks. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, but they left traces. I'm compiling everything for potential legal action. What about my parents? I asked. The question that had been weighing heaviest on my heart. How do we help them see what's happening? Direct confrontation hasn't worked, Caitlin noted. We need concrete evidence they can't dismiss. A thought occurred to me. The family accountant, William Barnes. He's worked with my parents for decades. If anyone would know about unusual financial activity, it's him. Good thinking, Ryan approved. Can you call him? My heart pounded as I dialed the number. William had done my first tax return when I got a paper route at 12. Would he even talk to me if Michael had poisoned him against me too? Barnes Accounting, came the familiar gruff voice. Mr. Barnes? It's Audrey Patterson. A pause. Audrey? Well, this is a surprise. Your brother said you weren't speaking to the family anymore. I closed my eyes briefly. That's not true, Mr. Barnes. In fact, I'm concerned about my parents' financial situation. Has anything unusual happened with their accounts recently? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. I probably shouldn't be discussing this, he finally said. But I've known you since you were counting pennies from that paper route. And frankly, I've had concerns myself. My grip tightened on the phone. What kind of concerns? Large withdrawals. Investment shifts to high-risk ventures. A new power of attorney document I didn't prepare. When I questioned some transactions, your father said Michael was handling everything now, and I should just prepare their taxes as usual. Do you have records of these transactions? Another hesitation. I do, but I can't legally share them without your parents' permission. What if we had reason to believe elderly financial abuse was occurring? His voice lowered. If there was a formal investigation, that would be different. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. One more thing, did Michael tell you I had addiction issues? Or mental health problems? He mentioned something along those lines, the accountant admitted. Said you'd been in and out of treatment. None of that is true. I've never had addiction issues or been in treatment of any kind. Michael has been systematically lying about me to isolate our parents. Jesus, he muttered. I had my doubts about some of his stories. They didn't sound like the Audrey I knew. Listen, if you're pursuing this officially, I'll cooperate. Those are good people who worked hard for their retirement. I don't want to see them taken advantage of. When I hung up, I felt the first real surge of hope. Mr. Barnes is on our side. He can't share documents yet, but he'll cooperate with an official investigation. That's a huge win, Ryan said. Let me make some calls to Adult Protective Services. If we can get an investigation started on grounds of potential elder financial abuse. While Ryan worked the official channels, Caitlin helped me craft social media posts suggesting I'd return to Chicago, accompanied by photos Sophie took of my empty office desk. The key is making Michael believe he's won, Caitlin explained. Once he thinks you're gone, he might get careless. Jason set up discreet surveillance on my parents' home. Nothing illegal, just a motion-activated camera aimed at the public street from a neighbor's property, with permission. We needed to document Michael's comings and goings, establish patterns. As part of our digital counteroffensive, Sophie began contacting my clients directly, explaining the security breach while repairing damaged relationships. Her calm professionalism saved several accounts that might otherwise have been lost. After 3 days of intensive preparation, we had the beginnings of a solid case and a clear strategy. The most difficult part was staying away from my parents, knowing they believed I had abandoned them. Several times I had to be talked out of driving straight to their house to confront Michael. Patience, Ryan counseled. We're building something that will expose him completely, not just create a temporary setback. On the 4th day, we decided it was time for a calculated risk. I compiled a folder of evidence printouts of the fake social media accounts traced to Michael's IP address, records of my attempted calls to my parents. witness statements from Mrs. Henderson and others about Michael's lies, and had it delivered anonymously to Michael's office. The only note inside read, "I know what you're doing. So will everyone else soon." The surveillance camera captured his reaction when he returned home that evening. He sat in his car for nearly 10 minutes, clutching the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles showed white even in the grainy footage. When he finally entered the house, his movements were jerky, agitated. 2 hours later, my phone rang another unknown number. "You think you're clever?" Michael's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "You think this little collection of evidence means anything? I've prepared for every contingency, including fraud charges, elder abuse investigations, identity theft. That's a lot of felonies, Michael. By the time any investigation concludes, there won't be anything left for you to salvage," he snarled. "Do you think I don't have contingency plans? Dead man switches? One word from me, and everything Mom and Dad have built over their lives is gone." "Why are you doing this?" I asked, genuinely bewildered by the depth of his hatred. "We're talking about our parents." "My parents," he hissed. "You were just a charity case they took in. A mistake they've finally recognized." The venom in his voice shocked even me. This wasn't just jealousy or greed, this was pathological hatred. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, Audrey." I squared my shoulders, though he couldn't see me. "That's where you're wrong, Michael. I've survived everything you've thrown at me so far, and I'm just getting started." I ended the call and turned to my team, who had been listening on speakerphone. "He's rattled," Ryan observed, "making threats, losing control, and unwittingly confirming everything we suspected," Caitlin added, making notes. "This recording alone shows intent." Jason looked up from his laptop. "I managed to trace the account transfers while he was distracted with your delivery. Audrey, your parents' retirement fund has been almost completely moved into Michael's business accounts. We're talking about nearly $800,000. The room fell silent as the magnitude of the theft sank in. "Can it be recovered?" I finally asked. "If we move quickly enough, yes," Caitlin said. "But we need to act now. Ryan, is that enough for your department?" Ryan shook his head. "Almost, but we need more direct evidence linking him personally to the transfers. A paper trail, bank surveillance footage, something concrete." "Then let's get it," I said, newfound determination flowing through me. "Let's end this. Tonight." Michael had spent his life undermining me, isolating me, making me doubt myself, but he'd never seen me fight before. That was his first mistake, and it would be his last. The next morning brought promising developments. The district attorney had reviewed our evidence and expressed interest in pursuing charges of elder financial abuse and identity theft. Ryan had arranged a preliminary meeting at the DA's office for that afternoon. "This isn't a sure thing yet," he cautioned as we gathered our documentation, "but it's a significant step. If the DA decides to move forward, we can request emergency financial protections for your parents." Caitlin nodded, arranging affidavits in a leather portfolio. "The key is demonstrating imminent risk of harm. With the evidence of funds already transferred, we have a strong case." I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. After days of desperate scrambling, it seemed we were finally making progress. The system was working. Justice was within reach. Then my phone rang. "Is this Audrey Patterson?" an unfamiliar voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is Nurse Jimenez from Maple Creek Memorial Hospital. I'm calling because you're listed as next of kin for Robert and Nancy Patterson. There's been an accident." The room tilted around me as I struggled to process her words. "What kind of accident? Are they okay?" "They both fell down the stairs at their home. Your father has a broken hip and your mother sustained a concussion. They're stable, but we'd like a family member to come in as soon as possible." My throat closed with panic. "I'll be right there." Caitlin drove while I sat frozen in the passenger seat, worst-case scenarios tumbling through my mind. "This wasn't an accident," I said finally. "Michael must have realized we were closing in. He did this." "Let's not jump to conclusions," Caitlin cautioned, but her white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel betrayed her own suspicions. When we arrived at the hospital, The emergency room was bustling with activity. I rushed to the front desk, gave my parents' names, and was directed to the third floor. As the elevator doors opened, I saw Michael standing at the nurse's station, deep in conversation with a doctor. He looked up when he heard my approach, his expression shifting from surprise to cold calculation. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I thought you were in Chicago." "The hospital called me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What happened, Michael?" The doctor beside him, Dr. Patel, according to his ID badge, interjected. "Are you another family member?" "I'm their daughter," I confirmed. "She's adopted," Michael clarified immediately, his voice carrying an unmistakable dismissive undertone. "I'm their biological son and medical proxy." Dr. Patel nodded, consulting his tablet. "Yes, I see that noted here. Mr. Patterson has already been handling the admission paperwork and treatment decisions." "How are they?" I asked, ignoring Michael's smug expression. "Both patients are stable. Your father will need hip replacement surgery tomorrow morning. Your mother's concussion is mild, but we're keeping her for observation due to her age." "Can I see them?" Dr. Patel glanced at Michael, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. My blood boiled at the exchange. "They're resting now," the doctor said diplomatically. "Perhaps later." "I'm their daughter," I insisted. "I have a right to see them." "Actually," Michael interrupted smoothly, "given your history of emotional outbursts and instability, I think it would be better if you didn't upset them during this critical recovery period." I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" He turned to Dr. Patel with practiced concern. "My sister has been experiencing some mental health challenges. She's been quite volatile lately, making accusations, causing scenes. Our parents find it very distressing." Before I could respond to this outrageous lie, 2 security guards approached, summoned by a discreet signal from the nurse's station. "Miss Patterson," one of them said firmly, "we need to ask you to leave the premises." "What? No, there's been a mistake. I'm here to see my parents." "Your brother has requested that we escort you out. He has medical authority in this situation." I looked from the guards to Michael's triumphant face, to Dr. Patel's uncomfortable expression. "This is absurd! He's manipulating you! He's the reason they're here!" My raised voice only confirmed the picture Michael had painted of me. The security guards took my arms gently but firmly. "Please don't make this difficult, ma'am." Caitlin stepped forward. "I'm her attorney. This removal is inappropriate and possibly illegal." "You can take it up with hospital administration," the guard replied, unmoved. "But right now, we need to maintain a calm environment for the patients." As they led me toward the elevator, Michael stepped closer, speaking so only I could hear. "I told you to leave it alone," he whispered. "This is just the beginning of what happens when you cross me." The ride down to the parking lot passed in a blur of humiliation and rage. Once outside, I collapsed onto a bench, trembling. "He's won," I said hollowly. "He has complete control now. They're injured and vulnerable, and he's made sure I can't even see them." Caitlin sat beside me, her legal pad abandoned. "This is a setback, but it's not over." "You don't understand," I said, tears streaming down my face. "This wasn't just a fall. You don't know Michael like I do. He arranged this somehow. And now he has them completely isolated, completely dependent on him." My phone buzzed Ryan, calling for an update. I couldn't even find the words to explain our catastrophic reversal of fortune. Caitlin took the phone, briefly recounting the situation. "The DA meeting?" I asked when she hung up. "Postponed. Ryan thinks we need to regroup, reassess our strategy given these new developments." Back at the hotel, I collapsed onto the bed, overwhelmed by despair. My parents were injured and alone except for the person who had hurt them. My attempts to help had only made things worse. Maybe Michael was right. Maybe I should never have come home. The team gathered in my room that evening, attempting to formulate a new plan, but I barely participated. The fight had drained out of me. Every avenue seemed blocked, every strategy anticipated and countered by Michael. "I should go back to Chicago," I said finally. "At least salvage what's left of my career. I can't help them if I can't even see them." "That's exactly what Michael wants," Jason pointed out. For you to give up. Then he wins, I said bitterly. Again. Like always. A soft knock at the door interrupted our gloomy deliberations. Caitlin answered it, returning with a small, unexpected visitor, her 8-year-old daughter Emma, clutching a drawing. Aunt Caitlin said you're sad because a bad man won't let you see your mommy and daddy, the little girl said, climbing onto the bed beside me. I made you a picture. The crayon drawing showed a stick figure with long brown hair, wearing what appeared to be a superhero cape. The word fighter was written above it in wobbly letters. That's you, Emma explained seriously. You're a fighter. Mommy says you're not giving up, even when it's hard. I stared at the childish drawing, something shifting inside me. This little girl who barely knew me had more faith in my strength than I did myself. Thank you, Emma, I said softly. This is exactly what I needed. After Caitlin took Emma home, I spread our evidence across the hotel bed, examining each piece with renewed determination. My parents raised me to never quit, I told Ryan and Jason. That's the one lesson I'd make sure they remembered, even if Michael has tried to erase everything else about me. 3 days later, we gathered at the county courthouse for the emergency guardianship hearing. Caitlin had worked through 2 consecutive nights preparing our case, filing for both a restraining order against Michael and temporary guardianship of my parents. Remember, she cautioned as we entered the imposing building, Michael will have legal representation, expensive representation. This won't be easy. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lighting that seemed designed to make everyone look sickly. Michael was already there, seated beside a distinguished-looking attorney in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He barely glanced our way, projecting absolute confidence. Judge Eleanor Simmons, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, called the court to order promptly at 9. Michael's attorney, introduced as Harrison Wells from a prestigious Indianapolis firm, spoke first. Your Honor, this petition is nothing but a desperate attempt by an estranged family member to interfere with existing legal arrangements. My client has been granted power of attorney and medical proxy by his parents, who are unfortunately unable to be present due to injuries sustained in an accidental fall. Conveniently timed, Caitlin commented under her breath. Wells continued smoothly. Miss Patterson has had minimal contact with her adoptive parents for years, and her sudden interest in their affairs coincides suspiciously with recent updates to their estate planning. Further, she has exhibited erratic behavior, including harassment of hospital staff attempting to care for her parents. I bit my tongue, fighting the urge to interrupt his cascade of lies. When Caitlin rose to present our case, the contrast in styles was immediately apparent. Where Wells was polished and theatrical, Caitlin was methodical and precise. Your Honor, we have documented evidence of systematic financial exploitation, identity theft, and isolation, the textbook warning signs of elder abuse. She placed our binder of evidence before the judge. The respondent has transferred nearly all of his parents' retirement savings, $783,000, into his own business accounts over the past 10 months. He has isolated them from friends and other family members. And most disturbingly, their injuries occurred immediately after my client began investigating these financial irregularities. Judge Simmons reviewed our documentation with narrowed eyes, occasionally glancing at Michael, who maintained a perfect mask of filial concern. We've also brought a surprise witness, Caitlin continued. Dr. James Wilson, the Pattersons' primary physician for the past 15 years. Dr. Wilson, a grandfatherly man with silver hair and kind eyes, took the stand and was sworn in. Dr. Wilson, in your professional opinion, were Robert and Nancy Patterson mentally competent to make complex financial decisions over the past year? The doctor adjusted his glasses. I've had concerns about Robert's cognitive function since his heart attack last spring. The medication he's been prescribed can cause confusion, and I noted short-term memory issues at his last several appointments. And did you express these concerns to Michael Patterson? I did. I specifically advised against any major financial changes until Robert's condition stabilized. Michael's attorney objected strenuously, but the damage was done. Judge Simmons was now looking at Michael with open suspicion. Our next witness was William Barnes, who testified about the unusual financial activity and Michael's increasingly controlling behavior regarding his parents' accounts. By the time Caitlin called Mrs. Henderson to testify about Michael's systematic isolation of our parents, I could see sweat beading on my brother's forehead. His attorney kept passing him notes, which he read with increasing agitation. The final blow came when Ryan presented the results of the police investigation, including bank surveillance footage showing Michael depositing checks from our parents' accounts into his business account, and evidence linking him to the fake social media accounts created in my name. Your Honor, Caitlin concluded, the evidence clearly establishes a pattern of exploitation and isolation. We ask that you appoint a neutral third-party guardian until Robert and Nancy Patterson recover sufficiently to make their own decisions, and that you issue an immediate freeze on all financial accounts to prevent further dissipation of assets. Judge Simmons removed her glasses, looking directly at Michael. Mr. Patterson, these allegations are extremely serious. Do you wish to respond? Michael conferred hurriedly with his attorney before standing. Your Honor, I've only ever acted in my parents' best interests. Any financial assistance they've provided to my business was freely given. As for my sister's other accusations, they stem from her long-standing resentment over being adopted into our family. She's never felt she belonged, and now she's lashing out. The judge's expression remained impassive. That doesn't address the specific evidence presented here today. The evidence is circumstantial and easily explained, Michael insisted, his composure slipping. My parents trust me. They know I'm the only real family they have. There it was again, real family. The phrase that had started this whole ordeal. I felt an unexpected calm settle over me as I realized how transparent his insecurity had become. After 15 minutes of deliberation, Judge Simmons returned with her decision. Based on the evidence presented, I am granting temporary guardianship of Robert and Nancy Patterson to New Horizons Elder Services, a neutral third party, until such time as they are medically cleared to resume managing their own affairs. I am also issuing a temporary restraining order preventing Michael Patterson from accessing their financial accounts or medical facilities where they are being treated. Michael's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. They need me. Mr. Patterson, control yourself, the judge warned. This court is also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal investigation. You are excused. Outside the courtroom, Michael cornered me in the hallway, his attorney frantically trying to pull him away. You think this is over? He hissed. You have no idea what you've done. I'll never let you win. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw not the intimidating figure who had tormented me for years, but a desperate, hollow man consumed by jealousy and greed. It was never about winning, Michael, I said quietly. It was about protecting our parents from you, and I have. His face twisted with fury. They're not your parents. They never were. Blood doesn't make a family, I replied. Love, trust, and truth do. You might be their biological son, but you stopped being family the moment you betrayed that trust. Ryan appeared beside me, his police badge visible on his belt. Is there a problem here? Michael backed away, his lawyer finally succeeding in pulling him toward the exit. I watched him go, feeling not triumph but a profound sadness for everything that had been lost, not just money or status, but the possibility of the family we could have been. 2 days later, Michael was arrested attempting to cross the state line with a suitcase containing $150,000 in cash withdrawn from his business account. The district attorney filed charges of financial elder abuse, identity theft, and fraud. When I was finally allowed to visit my parents in the rehabilitation facility where they'd been moved, the reunion was bittersweet. My father, propped up in bed with his newly repaired hip, looked frail and confused. My mother, the concussion still affecting her short-term memory, kept asking the same questions. Michael said you didn't want to see us anymore, my father said, his voice breaking. He showed us terrible messages from you. None of that was real, Dad, I explained gently. Michael created fake accounts, fake messages. He was taking your money, isolating you from everyone who cared about you. We should have known better, my mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. You were always such a good girl. It never made sense that you'd say those things. Why would he do this? My father asked, genuine bewilderment in his eyes. He's our son. He told us. My mother hesitated, looking afraid. He told us if we ever took your side against him, he would make sure we never saw either of you again. He said he'd hurt you if we didn't cooperate. The revelation sent ice through my veins. Michael's manipulation had gone beyond financial abuse to actual threats of violence. He can't hurt any of us now, I assured them, though the knowledge that he had threatened my life sent shivers through me. You're safe. I'm safe. And we're going to rebuild our family one day at a time. When Michael's case finally went to trial 3 months later, he maintained his innocence, rejecting a plea deal and forcing our parents to testify. Watching them recount his betrayal on the witness stand was one of the most painful experiences of my life, but they showed remarkable courage, finally free from his psychological control. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. As Michael was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. There was no remorse in his eyes, only the same cold hatred that had driven him to destroy his own family. In that moment, I realized that regardless of the court's punishment, Michael had already suffered the worst consequence possible. He had lost himself long before he lost his freedom. 6 months after Michael's conviction, I sat in my Chicago apartment on a Sunday morning, laptop open for my weekly video call with my parents. They had moved into Lakeview Retirement Community, just 15 minutes from my place, allowing me to visit several times a week while still maintaining my career and independence. Audrey, dear, look what we made in art therapy. My mother held up a colorful ceramic bowl, slightly lopsided but charming. The occupational therapist says it's good for Dad's dexterity after the surgery. It's beautiful, Mom, I smiled, watching my father pretend to be embarrassed by the praise while clearly proud of their creation. My parents' recovery had been gradual but steady. With proper medical care and therapy, both physical and psychological, they were regaining not just their health but their confidence and autonomy. Most of their retirement funds had been recovered, though some investments Michael had made were irretrievable. How was your presentation? My father asked, referring to the major pitch I delivered to a potential client the previous day. We got the account, I announced proudly. The biggest one of my career so far. Their genuine excitement and pride warmed my heart. After years of Michael's interference, we were rebuilding our relationship one conversation at a time, one shared success at a time. The tragedy of Michael's betrayal had forced all of us to confront painful truths. For my parents, it was acknowledging how they had enabled his behavior over the years, overlooking red flags and allowing him to drive wedges between us. For me, it was recognizing how deeply his rejection had shaped me, how I had internalized his message that I didn't truly belong. We had started family therapy sessions, awkward at first, but increasingly valuable, as we learned to communicate honestly about difficult topics, including my adoption. My parents shared stories from those early days that Michael had tried to erase, like how they had chosen me specifically after meeting several children, how my father had stayed up all night painting my bedroom with clouds and butterflies before bringing me home. We never meant to make you feel different or less than, my mother had explained tearfully during one session. We were just so afraid of doing something wrong, of not honoring your birth heritage properly, that sometimes we probably overcompensated. The therapy had also helped me process another shocking discovery. Michael had intercepted letters from my birth mother over the years. After his arrest, police found a box in his storage unit containing a dozen unopened envelopes addressed to me, dating back to my 18th birthday. Reading those letters had been an emotional earthquake. My birth mother, Elena, had wanted to connect when I became an adult, not to replace my adoptive parents but to answer questions she knew I might have. Michael had stolen that opportunity from all of us. With the therapist's guidance, I had decided to respond to Elena. Our first meeting, in a quiet coffee shop, halfway between Chicago and her home in Milwaukee, had been tentative but warm. She had two other children, half-siblings, I never knew existed, and welcomed me into their lives with open arms. "Have you heard anything more about connecting with your birth family?" my father asked now, showing how far he'd come in accepting this new dimension of my life. "Elena and her kids are coming for dinner next Saturday," I replied. "I was hoping you two might join us." The fact that they immediately agreed, without insecurity or hesitation, showed how much healing had occurred. 6 months ago, such a gathering would have seemed impossible. My professional life had rebounded as well. After the truth about the hacked accounts came to light, my company had not only reinstated me but offered a promotion in recognition of my resilience. My boss Janet had become one of my strongest advocates, impressed by how I'd handled the crisis while maintaining professional commitments. Caitlin and Ryan remained close friends, our bond forged in the crucible of that difficult time. Ryan had been promoted to detective sergeant, partly due to his work on Michael's case, which had uncovered similar financial schemes targeting other elderly residents of Maple Creek. As the video call with my parents wound down, my mother asked the question that still arose occasionally. "Have you heard anything about Michael?" Michael had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 5. He had made no attempt to contact any of us. "Nothing new," I answered honestly. "His appeals were denied last month. We rarely spoke about him at length, but he remained a painful absence in our family, not because we missed his presence, but because we mourned what could have been, the brother and son he chose not to be. I keep trying to understand where we went wrong with him," my father said. A familiar refrain. "Dad, some things can't be fully understood," I replied gently. "Michael made his choices. What matters is that we're making better ones now." After ending the call, I prepared for the small New Year's Eve gathering I was hosting that evening, a symbolic reclaiming of the holiday that had marked the beginning of this journey exactly 1 year ago. Caitlin and Ryan would be there, along with Sophie from work, Jason and his partner, and a few other friends who had supported me through the darkest days. My parents had declined, still finding large social events overwhelming, but had helped with the preparations earlier in the day. As I arranged appetizers on festive platters, I reflected on everything the year had taught me. I had learned about my own strength, about the true meaning of family, about the importance of fighting for truth, even when easier paths presented themselves. The doorbell rang, announcing the first guests. As the apartment filled with friendly voices and laughter, I felt a profound sense of peace. This gathering, these people who had chosen to stand by me, who had believed in me when my own family wavered, represented what I now understood about belonging. Blood might make you related, but loyalty, love, and truth make you family. And this new year, for the first time, I was surrounded by my real family, the one I chose, and who chose me back. So, as we all go into a new year of our own, I'd love to know, what does family mean to you? Is it the people you're related to by blood, or the ones who stand by you no matter what? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and resilience. Remember that family, whether by blood or by choice, is what we make of it. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your new year be filled with authentic connections and true belonging.